Moon Hunters is a personality test in the form of an action-adventure RPG. It is currently available on Steam for $14.99. You can get the soundtrack edition for an additional $5, or buy the soundtrack alone for $9.99. Soundtrack is actually pretty good. Lots of spoken word stuff, lots of very soothing, new agey type stuff if you're into that. As you can see, it is a pixel art animation focused game, very much like Nuclear Throne and several other titles. It also has twin stick featured combat. However, you do have individual spells and abilities related to each individual class, and you unlock classes as you play through. You even unlock different outfits for each one of these classes. And each individual playthrough takes between 30 and 45 minutes, and your actions are summarized in the form of a constellation, much like how your birth month's constellation supposedly dictates or at least provides some insight to your personality. Supposedly. You can choose to play with 4 local players, or you could choose to play with a bunch of people online, which is currently in beta. You have to open a couple ports to make that happen, but it is possible. However, it should be noted that it's absolutely unnecessary. At no point while I was playing this did I think, hey, wouldn't it be great to play this game with somebody else? I have plenty of other party games and online co-op games that I feel like would be better suited, unless I guess you're trying to figure out what you and your friends' combined personality might be, maybe, but other than that, I think you're perfectly fine just playing this thing solo. So when you kick things off, you choose a character. Pretty simple. You have a handful of classes. Some of them I've actually just recently unlocked. And then you give them a name, and then you choose their origin story. Very, very brief. It's practically nothing. You get a little bit of a brief cutscene, and then when you get in, that's when you actually start making the decisions that influence the end, and of course, the things you unlock for your next playthrough. Everything around this game is designed not just for the story that you get at the end, like your personal story at the end, but also what you get to unlock for your next playthrough. Now, when I say this is a personality test, it means that the combat is pretty much just filler for the most part. It does have some influence on your character's personality traits. If you look up here, you can see that we have different individual traits that we're given, that we earn, and that can be tailored by your decisions and things that you do. But for the most part, combat does feel very much like it's just filler. It's just there. This is why I say you don't really need to have a co-op function in this game, because you're not really going to get a whole lot out of playing with your friends when the game is not terribly difficult to play solo, and there really is no penalty for losing. When you die, you just lose a day, and that's pretty much it. Now, speaking of days, this is where the timeline in terms of like 30 to 45 minutes comes into play. There are only so many days left before you go into the final boss encounter. The progression of days is capped, usually by you dying or by you getting to the end of whatever map you're in and then camping. When you camp, you have the option of performing certain tasks. You can hunt, you can keep watch, you can stargaze, you can cook. Each of these things gives you a different stat boost. Some of these stats will actually have an influence on your interactions with other people and NPCs, and some of them, of course, will have a direct influence on your performance when in the final encounter. Now, I wouldn't stress too much about the final boss because, like I said, the combat in this game is pretty easy, especially for a ranged class, so you probably don't necessarily have to worry about fighting the last guy. The point is not the difficulty of the game. Again, it's about the outcome of your individual choices while you play. Let's talk about those choices. Just about every action you take will result in some kind of personality trait influence. Whenever you're in one of the maps here and you're running around, you could come across a merchant. You can come across a cave or a house. And when you go to that house, you can have one of 2 outcomes. Here's an example. I was given a choice. This young lady was upset because I knocked on her door. I can try to flatter her, in which case she gets pissed and I don't get anything. Or I could basically back off, put my hands in the air like it says, and then I get health. She's like, oh, hey, you have a little bit of humility. Here is some health. This is just one example of a ton of different things that you get in the game. There's some recurring storyline pieces where initially there was a child that was supposed to be given up to adoption to a certain tribes or whatever. I got to choose what the child's life would become afterwards or whatever. And I got to choose the name of the baby, and then later it was presented to me, whatever. Like each one of those steps had an influence. It was kind of an overarching story that contributed to my, basically the legend of my character after I beat the final boss. As you can see right here, written in the stars, right? The legend of me. That's what the game's all about. And if you're somebody that's driven by that, you want to try to unlock everything. You go in there and try to mix and match each individual trait to unlock different constellations. You have to try to find some of these different unlocks that you get by talking to certain people, or by maybe making specific decisions when talking to certain people. Again, everything is pretty much procedurally generated, so you may not always have an opportunity to try to unlock a certain item, skin, character class, constellation, whatever. And all that leads to where I'm at right now. I am done. I'm done with the game. I've played 3 times. I got 3 different constellations, 3 different endings. I went through actually one entire run and didn't kill anything, and I still got labeled a rat. So, I mean, I'm done. Like, I feel like I've gotten my fulfillment out of this game. I don't really necessarily need to go through, or feel the need to go through and unlock everything in the game. If you are, then maybe this is the game for you. But at $14.99, I really can't justify that price versus the replayability that's available to us here. Co-op, again, doesn't feel like it's a core element of the game. It's there, you can do it, but you're not necessarily going to be getting too much out of it. Primarily because the only reason why you do it is for combat purposes, not necessarily for story purposes, again, unless you're trying to figure out what you and your friends, like, you know, overlap is in terms of personality and constellations. But other than that, combat is kind of just, it's just a hurdle. It's just there. It happens every once in a while. There's no real story element to it. You fight snakes, you fight boars, you fight some of these tribesmen, but there isn't really a lot of depth there to combat. It's almost like it's, I mean, it is procedurally generated, so it just kind of throws random shit at you whenever you spawn into an area, and that's pretty much it. So that's Moon Hunters, available right now on Steam for $14.99. Again, soundtrack version for $19.99. Thank you so much, aka Tanaros, for hooking me up with a copy of this game. You guys can follow me at aka Mike B on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and .com. NSFW on the last one there. Thanks for watching. If you guys want to support me, I have some Patreon info coming soon. In the meantime, you guys can like, favorite, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.